All right, it is April 27th, 2025. Yesterday, I actually went ahead and opened up this area at about an acre total, I would say. And this is an area that I had planted trees 3 years ago, and they really just failed to thrive. There's a few that have come up. There's a few volunteers that have come up, so I've left them. But I went ahead and knocked this down, and I have new trees to plant in it that'll be larger trees. So the trees that I had initially planted were all 6-inch to 1 foot whips, planted about 2,000, primarily focused up in there where it is still densely vegetated. And I had decided that, why buy tree tubes and tube the trees when a tree tube costs the same as a tree? Go ahead and put down twice as many trees and, let the fittest of the fittest survive. And it has worked to some extent. I don't think I would go that route again. I think I would, in fact, tree tube. Part of that is that we have changed the way that we operate. We have more grazing animals now and really want to integrate them more into the systems because we've just seen the benefit of that. Way faster growth on everything, really a lot better regrowth afterwards. And if we had tubed the trees, we would be able to go ahead and graze around them with the sheep. And it also makes them easier to find, to maintain around them. But the rest of this area looked like this before. We are right on the edge of the wood chip berm. That was about a 4-foot tall berm that I built when we first took the field over. The field was leased to a row cropper before we purchased it, and we did lease it for one additional season afterwards so that it would finish off on a soybean year. And when it was harvested, the wind was just horrendous coming through here. So you got a straight shot for quite a ways, all the way over there. It's all fields. Primarily our wind's coming in from that direction. That is one really long field over there. And so we just get a lot of wind whipping through here. A lot of trash off the road. We are on a highway. And so a lot of that was blown in. I went ahead and made that wood chip berm, which cut back on the wind, cut down on where the trash was able to blow to because it would get stuck on that front of the berm, and made it a lot easier to go ahead and pick it up. Now it's not such a big deal because we do have all of this up through here. You can see some of the pine trees we planted, and then there's locust, mulberry, river birch, sycamore, tulip poplars, oaks, hickory, a whole lot of things. I've started plugging some persimmons and whatnot in there. Basically, the end goal with that is that we would like to have an area where we're able to silvopasture and get actual nut and fruit crops off of it for the animals. Now, if you notice the transition here where it's lusher green and then not, this is one of my paths that I had maintained through here for the last year. Do it for numerous reasons. Partially a fire break, is we're not really in what at least was previously considered a wildfire area, but the East Coast is seeing more and more of them. Being right on a main road, trailer chains, they are a major cause of wildfires. Cigarettes, anything along those lines, faulty exhaust systems. So it is something I try to maintain a few. Most of them are fairly small, but we do have a decent buffer from the road. Last year I started picking up on it a bit more because we were in a drought year, and then actually this winter we've had several brush fires around here that got fairly large. I'd say that was back in February or so, and so that just put an extra highlight on it. And as I say, it's not a major concern for our area, but it is something we do want to utilize and just build it into our systems, because if it's there, we no longer have to worry about it to the same extent. And then it also is a nice place to come through and walk, especially on times when the traffic's a little lower on the road and you've got all the tall stuff along the sides. But you can see here I left the taller trees that are in here. A lot of these ones are volunteers, so there's a lot of sweet gum like this, pines, a couple of sycamores popping up, but they will still provide shade. The pines are of course great for a little bit of winter cover, since that is something we don't typically have around here. And windbreak, animal housing, bug spots, you know, just the whole yard. Basically, the goal that we're trying to do is sort of a ecosystem integrated into the farm. So it's not just a sterile field, you know, there's a little bit of everything. For instance, the goldenrod here, it's great for the pollinators, great for a bunch of beneficial insects. Overall, we've got it scattered throughout the whole property, and it probably does make a pretty large amount of area if you saw it all in one block, but it's mostly spread out in these little rows, groups or clusters throughout the place. There's also wild blackberry coming up. We'll leave them. Great for the birds. We can forage them, run the chickens through them, put the pigs on them. And I will likely move some of our cultivated blackberries along these areas as well, because a lot of this front stretch will maintain more of a wildscape feel than what's further back on the property, where it'll be a more manicured silvopasture slash savanna kind of feel. So trees a little bit more spread out, probably more frequent rotations. But this whole area has been untouched for 3 years now, and pushing it in a little bit into production, but also allowing long rest areas rest periods, seems to be working quite well in an area that we grazed last fall that was also untouched, and that is right up there. It was heavy on broom sedge, heavy in dog fennel, and we actually put the cow and sheep out on it late in the fall last year. We had been extremely dry, and so our normal areas were taking much longer to rebound. So we went ahead and threw them in there and fed some hay in there as well when they needed it, and have been really, really impressed with the growth that has given. I did go ahead and mow this yesterday as well, and of course it's seeded while the animals were in there. But it's gotten some really nice growth, a lot of moisture in there. That's probably largely attributed to the dog fennel and broom sedge having really deep root structures, kind of breaking up some of that. And I'm not going to walk through that area right now because this video is already getting kind of long, but that gives you an idea. There's a lot of trees coming up through there. Again, mostly sweet gum. We have a lot of saltbush coming up, which has been really cool because it's primarily an evergreen. This is one right here that the cow decided to destroy. He loved to destroy anything that you cared about. It will regrow, but they are typically a very lush, fast-growing shrub. They don't necessarily throw a huge shade area, but they do provide shade, and then that wintertime windbreak. This year we did get cold enough that they mostly shed their leaves, but they've been coming back pretty darn well since then. So that's sort of what's going on around here, aside from our normal grazing pastures.